Sea ice algae, the hidden world underneath the Arctic ice. When you think of the Arctic, you probably imagine a landscape like this. Harsh, cold and pretty much devoid of any life, maybe except for the occasional polar bear. But this is only true on the surface, because if we look under the ice, there is a whole invisible ecosystem to be found. As you might know, the Arctic consists of sea ice and ice floes covering a vast polar ocean, and underneath this meter-thick ice, a whole other world exists. Fish, crustaceans and other organisms all flourish here, despite the frigid surroundings. But what sustains these creatures? Algae. They grow in and on the underside of the ice floes, and use the light passing through the ice and water to photosynthesize. This happens especially in late spring and summer, when more cracks and openings in the ice let light through into the ocean below. One of the most prominent algae here is Meloxera arctica, which is a species of single-celled diatom. Even though these algae are microscopic in nature, they form long chains up to several meters in length. They use a polysaccharide mucilage to stick to each other and to the underside of the ice. This way, they grow a brown-green turf underneath the ice. This turf also acts as a home to other algae and microorganisms that live on the Meloxera strands. These algae mats also serve as the food for a whole range of organisms in the zooplankton, such as copepods and amphipods. These in turn feed bigger animals, such as Arctic cod, which itself is an important part of the Arctic food web. But not only the organisms right under the ice profit from the ice algae. When the ice floes break up and melt in the late summer, the algae on them clump together and sink down to the ocean floor. There, they feed even more organisms, such as sea cucumbers and brittle stars. This downward transport also carries large quantities of carbon to the deeper oceans, with Meloxera arctica alone making up an estimated 85% of the carbon transfer in the Arctic Ocean. However, the impact of the climate crisis is changing this ecological web. As the temperatures in the Arctic are rising 4 times faster than the rest of the Earth, the ice gets thinner and more pools start forming. This means more light gets into the water, enabling more algae growth. In the long term, sea ice loss might also reduce the habitat for the ice algae, and cause a shift to phytoplankton in the water as the main primary producer. This could have serious implications for the food webs at the surface and on the sea floor. But this is not the only human impact that affects the world of these tiny algae. Microplastic has reached even the most remote areas of our planet, and as such can be found even in the Arctic Ocean. By way of water currents and atmospheric transport, these tiny plastic particles and fragments reach the polar waters. Here, they get stuck on the sticky mucilage that the diatoms use to form their long chains. The plastic-loaded algae strands eventually also sink down into the depths. When the algae are consumed by other organisms, it could lead to the plastic particles being accumulated in their bodies and then getting passed along the food chain. The polar ocean is anything but a lifeless desert, if you know where to look. But even this remote ecosystem is faced with big changes due to human activities and needs more attention to understand its details and ensure its survival.